Welcome to the Family Goals Podcast with David Pollack and Pastor Jay. My name is Joel House, and the purpose of this podcast is to encourage you to grow closer to God, to strengthen your marriage, and to inspire your family to reach its highest potential. In this episode, we have a discussion with legendary NFL coach Tony Dungy. So everyone knows Coach Dungy as an incredible coach, but there's so much more to his life than football. Dungy speaks on how he came to know the Lord, his relationship with his wife and his 11 children, and the greatest advice he has for being an all-pro dad. Take a listen.
We have a very special guest on the podcast today, Super Bowl winning head football coach, Tony Dungy.
Yeah, one of the few that proved that you can do it in a style that doesn't have to be a dictator. You know, seriously, like I remember watching all these coaches win all the time, and same with Saban, and then I think Dabo Swinney, but one of the few that he leads with love, and just it's different. You could feel it different. Everybody that ever played for him that I talked to absolutely love the guy. And Tony, we appreciate you joining us.
Well, thank you, David. It's great to be with you, and you're a guy that I admire too from a distance. I know we've talked about it. I just thought you would be our type of player. Your energy level, your passion for the game, your passion for life, your devotion to your teammates. But that year, the year you came out of University of Georgia, we were picking down because we had been winning.
Y'all are good.
So I knew there's no way we were going to get you. But I always loved watching you play and always admired you and love listening to you now.
Well, thank you, Coach. And I tell you what, all the meetings I went to, for the draft combines, like you go meet Pastor Jay, you sit down with all the coaches and you meet with them. And I'll never forget meeting with the Colts, and we had the meeting, and I met with the Patriots and Belichick and all. And Tony looked at me literally. He goes, "Hey, I wish I got a chance to coach you." He said, "But where we're picking it's not going to happen." But man, they had a heck of a team. You guys had a heck of a run. But Coach, how did you get into coaching? What was your calling to get into coaching?
You know, it was really amazing, David. Looking back on it now, I can see how the Lord trained me and prepared me for that. But at the time, I didn't know it. I was born and raised in a little industrial town in Michigan. My parents were teachers. My mom and dad both liked sports. So I kind of grew into sports that way naturally. Enjoyed everything, football, basketball, baseball, just played all sports. But I went to the University of Minnesota. I was a quarterback in middle school, high school, and college. After my senior year, I did not get drafted. So I had a chance to go to the Canadian League and continue to play quarterback. But I got a call from the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it was one of those calls that changes your life. You don't know it at the time, but they said they wanted me to sign with their team, but not as a quarterback. They had this guy named Terry Bradshaw, so they weren't really looking for quarterbacks at the time. But they said, hey, Coach Noel likes smart players. He likes guys that work hard. You'll fit right in. So I signed and switched to safety. And it was just an awesome, awesome moment for me because I got to a championship team. They had already won 2 Super Bowls at the time. The Rooney family, the ownership was just amazing. Coach Noel was one of those guys that was a teacher and an instructor, and that impacted me over the years. But they switched me to defense. So at the time, I'm like, gosh, I've never played defense. I've never tackled anybody. The first time they put me out at gunner and they had 2 guys on me, I said, hey, I'm used to having a red jersey on and not getting touched. What's going on out here? So it was all new. But I ended up playing 2 years for the Steelers, and then I got traded to the San Francisco 49ers. And at that time, this was Coach Walsh's first year with the team. We won 2 games and lost 14. But as I look back on it, I see, and I'll keep going. 1 year later, I got traded to the Giants, and I got cut, and I was out of the league at 25 years old. I had 1 Super Bowl ring, but now I was 25 years old and didn't know what was going to happen. But in the course of my career, I had played offense, played quarterback, I played defense, played for a championship team, I played for a rebuilding team, and Coach Noel called me. I was 25 years old, and he said, you know, you really have a good mindset for the game. You're a hard worker. You're a good communicator. I think you could be a good coach. I had never thought about that before in my life. But then as I look back on it, here was the Lord kind of training me, taking me offense, defense, great team, rebuilding team, play for 2 Hall of Fame coaches, learn both sides of the ball. That's how I got started in my coaching career, completely out of the blue at 25 years old.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your upbringing. I've read a little bit about your bio. Sounds like you had some incredible parents. This is one of the big focuses David and I have, of course, spiritual, focus on God, focus on parenting, focus on marriage. Sounds like you had some amazing parents, and did you come to know Jesus Christ at an early age?
I really did have some amazing parents, and that's one of my passions now is trying to build that and get that back in our country, because I think we need that. My parents were both teachers. My mom taught high school English and public speaking. I still get letters from people now who are in their 70s and 80s who said they had my mom in high school and she helped them get confidence and learn and grow. My dad was a junior college, community college biology professor. They were fantastic. The bigger blessing I had was my dad's father was a minister, and my mom taught the Sunday school class. So Thursday night she would practice the lessons on us kids, and see if we were getting it and what she wanted to say. So I was introduced to the Lord very early on in life. I understood what it meant, and I remember I don't remember the exact details, but I remember the pastor saying, "Hey, who wants to go to heaven?" And I raised my hand and said, absolutely. From what I've heard about it, I want to go. I accepted Christ as a young boy. But then I got like so many boys. I got zeroed in on sports. And I love sports. My parents were teachers, so I had to get good grades. So kind of my life became sports number one, get good grades number two, and Jesus was kind of a third tier way back down the line. And it was that way for me in high school and college. Of course, in high school, your parents, they get you up, you go to church, they're asking you questions. You understand that you've got to kind of toe the line. But I got to college, and now you're on your own. Nobody's there to wake you up. Nobody's there to, ask you to read the Bible. And so I kind of stagnated. And then when I went to Pittsburgh, it was just unbelievable. The first meeting we had as a rookie group, and David can remember your first mini camp rookie meeting, but Coach Noel got up in front of the group and he said, "Welcome to the National Football League." He said, "You guys are now getting paid to play football, so that makes it your profession. But don't make football your whole life. If you make football your whole life, when you leave the game, you're going to be disappointed." And I remember writing that down and saying, wow, this guy sounds just like my mom. My mother used to say that all the time. What would it profit a man to gain the whole world and forfeit your soul? That was her favorite Bible verse, Matthew 16:26. And now here was this Super Bowl winning coach basically saying the same thing. And then the next thing that Coach Noel did, as I said, I was converting. I knew nothing about defense. He put me in a room as my roommate with a guy named Donnie Shell, who was a all-star safety, great player, just recently inducted in the Hall of Fame. But he said, you watch Donnie Shell, you ask him questions, he will get you going. He'll show you how to play this new position. Well, he did that, but he did much more than that for me. Donnie was the most on-fire Christian athlete that I had ever been around up to that point. So we're in the dorm room, and every morning he gets up and he's reading his Bible, and he's telling me, hey, I just read John 1. Here's what happened. What did you read? I'm like, hold on. Nothing really. And then the same thing. He'd go to bed at night and he'd read, hey, before we go to sleep, I just read this, and here's what the Lord said to me. And it was awesome. And then he said, hey, we've got these Bible studies, players' Bible studies after practice, after the meeting. When you get done, come on down. And he started taking me to Bible studies. And this Steel Curtain team that I had watched as a high schooler and as a college player, now I'm sitting in there and there's 15, 18 guys in Bible study at night in training camp. And it's Joe Green and Mel Blount and Terry Bradshaw and John Stallworth. And I'm like, wow, I wasn't expecting this. And that's when my life changed. That's when I started growing as a 21-year-old.
So I'm hearing a lot of Proverbs 27:17, a lot of iron sharpening iron. I'm hearing a lot of your grandfather, your dad, your mom, people around you. Is this the genesis for all pro dads? Is this how it came about for you?
It really is. David, I can tell you when 2006 and we're winning the Super Bowl, I'm coaching on the sideline. There's a minute left, and we're up by 12 points, and I know we're going to win the game. I start thinking, how in the world did I get here? From Jackson, Michigan, little small town, and I'm coaching this team that's going to be the Super Bowl champs. And I started thinking about my parents at the time, and my grandfather, and a couple of the guys in high school who were ahead of me who kind of nurtured me. And I started thinking my junior high assistant principal, my college coach, all these names were just going through my mind in that last minute. And I'm saying, and if I didn't have all of that, as great of parents as I had, I still had so many more people that poured into me. And what if I'd have gone to the Canadian League and hadn't gone to Pittsburgh and hadn't met those guys? And I just look back and I thank God at that time, Lord, thank you for having all of these people pour into me. Well, then the question became, okay, what do I do with that? Yep. I had all this input. How do I give back? And that's when I started thinking there's got to be some way that we can make this mutual and that I can give back. And so All Pro Dads was actually one of those, kind of encouraging dads to be like my dad and pour into your children, and how can we help you do that?
That's really cool. When you think about your kids, because this is a parenting podcast, parenting and faith. Like when you think about your kids and raising your kids, what were some of the challenges? What were some of the things you learned that you can tell? I got a 13 and an 11-year-old. Like I'm screwing it up, Tony, along the way, and Pastor Jay is trying to, guide me. What are things you would say that you've learned from your kids and your journey that are really important to pass on that we can apply to our lives?
The biggest thing I learned is kids want your availability. They just want you there. My dad, as I say, was a teacher. So when I was growing up, it seemed like he was always around. Saturdays and Sundays when I was home, he was home. Summers when I was off, he was off. We're playing ball in the backyard, throwing baseballs, going to games, doing stuff. And I started realizing, man, I'm not there as much as my dad was there. We're playing games. I'm traveling on the weekend. I'm going on scouting trips. I'm going away to training camp for 4 or 5 weeks at a time. And I'm not there as available as I am, as I should be. And one of the biggest lessons I learned, David, I got an award, Father of the Year award in San Antonio, like in 2003. And so I'm going to receive this award. And I asked my son, who was like 12 at the time, I said, hey, tell me what has been the greatest thing that we've done together, because I want to tell a story when I get this award. And he's been on the sideline. He's held my court in playoff games. He's been to the Pro Bowl, throwing balls with Kurt Warner, and all these places I took him. So I thought he was going to say something like that, something really special, being on TV with you. He said, well, you remember that time we had to make a baseball out of a roll of tape, and we had a broomstick, and we played tape baseball, and I beat you 22-3. That's the most favorite time I had with you. And that hit me right then. It's not the great things. It's not going to Disney World or being on the sideline at an NFL game. It's playing tape baseball in the backyard. That's when it hit me. And it's just us being available and being there and pouring into our kids is so important.
That is such a powerful word. Quality time. Is it true that you have 11 children?
It is true. It is true. And that's kind of another story, but a testament to my wife. I was coaching in 2000. I was 45 years old and head coach of the Tampa Bay Bucks. We had an assistant coach. Our special teams coach was looking to adopt a baby. And so the adoption agency asked for references. I filled one out for him. They came out to interview me to ask about Coach Marciano, some of the things that we would do to help him raise this child. Started talking to the lady, my wife and I both, and she said that she worked with a crisis pregnancy center, and their agency took young women and urged them not to have abortion. And if they would go through with the pregnancies, they would find 2-parent Christian homes to put these young children in. And I said, now that is awesome, and my wife and I, we're doing a lot of stuff pro-life and my wife is working at crisis pregnancy centers too. So we were just talking, and then the lady said, I have to tell you, though, we have a real need here in Tampa, Florida. We have a need for African-American adoptive parents because we're doing this, and we have a backlog of kids. We have children that we can't place. And my wife and I both were like in shock. Well, all we hear is it takes years to adopt, and people are going overseas. And she said, no, I tell you, African-American and biracial kids right here in Tampa, if you are interested, you could get a child very soon. Well, that kind of broke our heart. And we're saying, hey, we're doing all this and promoting pro-life. And yes, but you're telling me that there are ladies who are doing this and then there's nowhere for the kids to go. And she said, that's exactly what I'm telling you. So we signed up, went through the classes, and probably 6 months later, she had a lady who was in her 7th month of pregnancy, and we ended up adopting a little boy, got 1 day old from the hospital. And that was our 4th child. That was 21 years ago. We did it 7 more times. So our last 8 children have been adopted, and they've been a real blessing.
Now, are these kids siblings? Like, were they from the same mother?
No, not necessarily. They're all from just this agency, and they're 90% of them, 1 day old. But you kind of go through the agency. But I'll tell you how the Lord works. We had done that 4 times, and then I got fired and transferred up to Indianapolis, Indiana. So we're in Indy now. I'm probably my 2nd or 3rd year as the head coach, and one of our older boys is playing a middle school football game. My wife's sitting there cheering next to another set of parents, and at halftime they start talking, and my wife says, or they ask her, well, why are you here? Well, my husband coaches the Colts. What do you do? And the guy said, well, I'm an adoption attorney. So my wife strikes up a conversation with him, and sure enough, we adopt 2 boys in Indiana. So 2 of our adopted kids are from Indiana, and the other 6 are from here in Tampa.
Well, all right. So quick question, because I have several friends that have adopted, a bunch of friends. Coach Rick came on, several episodes ago for us. And he talked about the challenges, like, because I think everybody thinks, it's kind of easy. Like you adopt and you take them in. And have you experienced challenges with kids with adoption? I mean, I just don't want people to think. I think it's a great thing. I'm not saying it's negative, but there are also some challenges that come with it. And he was very vocal about it. And I thought it was cool because people needed to hear that.
Yes, most of everyone but one of ours, we've gotten 1 day old right out of the hospital. So we haven't adopted the 2 or 3 or 5-year-old that already has developed some issues or, has been moved around in foster care, that type of thing. But you do, even with getting infants, you don't know what the genetics are. You don't know what the predisposition is. Our first, our 21-year-old, Jordan, we discovered 2 months later that he had a rare genetic disease. He doesn't feel pain. And I kind of first knew. I was watching a game, supposed to be babysitting. He's on the bed, and he rolled off. And I was like, oh, no, Lauren's going to kill me. How can I let him roll off the bed? I went to pick him up, and he didn't cry, nothing. And we're like, wow, what's going on here? Well, we found out later on that he has this condition that was really, really severe. And we had to take him. We went to University of Florida. We ended up going to Johns Hopkins. But at that time, we understood, boy, God put this together, because had we not had the access to the doctors and the insurance coverage and the thing, he would not have made it. But that kind of told us that even though there's challenges, God put us together for a reason. And that led us down the road to those next adoptions. But yeah, there are some things that are not easy because it's not necessarily smooth. You don't know all the background, all the details. There is separation anxiety that comes with some of these kids as they grow up, and they ask, well, what happened to my real mom? What happened to my real dad? Why did they not want me? and we have to turn it around and tell them, no, this was just God's plan. It wasn't that they didn't want you; they loved you, and God put you with us because of that love. But yeah, it's not all smooth sailing.
Well, caring for orphans is very, very close to the heart of God. And I've shared in church dozens and dozens of verses, both Old Testament and New Testament, that our role as Christians, our role as the church to care for widows and orphans. And so next to someone coming to faith in Jesus, I think adopting a child, talk about changing somebody's life for all eternity. It's just amazing. The fact that you have 11 children, you have a football team, like you have your own
offense.
You have
your own offense and defense, or defense. Which it was a defense for Coach Dungy, by the way. It would have been an offense.
He's got him playing the Tampa
crazy,
too.
But you mentioned that. I'll tell you another one of the thrills, one of the highlights of my career. Jesus told us that we've got to minister to the least of these. When I came to Tampa in 1996, the pastor of the church that we went to was a guy by the name of Abe Brown. He's a legendary man in Tampa. He's since passed away. But he had developed a prison ministry. He was a high school football coach, and he started visiting one of his former players that was sentenced to prison. And he kept going back, and he realized that so many of these other guys wanted to talk to him, and they didn't have people come and visit them. So he started this ministry of visiting prisons in Florida. So I got here in 1996, and he said, would you like to go with me on one of our visits? I think it'd be awesome. The men would love to see you. I had a little trepidation about it. What am I going to say? What are they going to be like? And you feel like you're going to meet all these hardened 35, 40, 50-year-old guys. Well, I went on the first trip, and there were so many 19 and 20 and 21-year-old kids in that prison that looked like my kids. I was shocked. But I started going back and kind of developing relationships with some of these guys and seeing why it was so important to Reverend Brown that these young men had years ahead of them. If they could turn it around and change things, if God could change things for them, what could they do in life? And that has been one of the blessings in my life to be able to do that. And then when you read the passage in Matthew where Jesus says, you saw me when I was in prison and you came visit me. You fed me when I was hungry. You took me in. And he said, no, I never did that, Lord. And he said, oh, yes, when you did it for the least of these, you did it for me. That's been a verse that stood out to me.
That is powerful.
That is powerful. And Coach, you've taken care of people with charity. You've taken care of 11 kids. You've won Super Bowls. You've done all these things. How do you take care of your bride? Like how do you put her? How is she? Because
I was wanting to ask him about his wife, because you and I both have amazing wives. And I'm trying to get some brownie points by saying that on the podcast. But tell us about your wife. She sounds like an amazing person.
She is. We met in Pittsburgh. One of my teammates was supposed to speak at a father and son breakfast at this church. The last minute he got sick, wasn't able to go. The chaplain asked me if I would fill in for him. So I did. And the minister, the pastor at this church said, oh, there's a girl here you might want to meet. I think you'd be perfect. And he actually introduced us. And we've been married almost 40 years now. But she has a heart for the Lord. She's got this passion that's incredible to reach out to young people and to reach out to the community. And you're right, David. Sometimes we can get so focused on, well, here's my job reaching out to my team. Here's my job reaching out in the community. And I may neglect my wife's needs sometimes. And I've got to be very, very careful about that. But she is special, and she has a huge heart.
I was thinking just like some we all get busy, like we all have, and I got 2 kids, bro. I can't imagine with 11, that's one. I was talking to a buddy on the way over here about, him and his wife and them struggling with stuff and just ways that we can, in this situation, I probably can't go into all the details because they might listen to the podcast, but putting their needs before ours, right? We're commanded, right? Like she's supposed to come first.
Yeah.
Like, and it's tough. And I think any advice we can ever get for that coach is valuable. So if you got any advice for me, I'll take it.
No, I think it really is just pausing and listening and trying to hear your wife's heart. And my wife was like a typical football wife. You know, when I got a new job, she moved, and you're maybe tearing her away from her church and her neighborhood and her community, but she's ready to go. And when I became the head coach, she wanted to be part of it. And so she developed a great ministry to the wives and the girlfriends in Tampa and in Indianapolis. And that was great because we could do some things together. But I think the biggest thing is pausing and saying, okay, here's my dreams, here's my goals, here's my aspirations. But what about my wife? What about Lauren's dreams? Am I making sure that I'm doing what I can to help her fulfill those?
That's awesome.
So then, Coach, what about during the season? What about when, I mean, it is full throttle, it's playoffs, you know, it's a long season. Like, how did you actually love and take care of your wife during those moments? Because off season, okay, we got time, but like in the midst of it, because Davey and I were kind of in the same place. We got 2 kids, we got all this other stuff. Obviously, nothing like you being a NFL coach, but like practically, what did you do in the heat of the season to make sure you didn't lose that connection with your wife?
I think you have to be very careful to make sure you schedule, and football coaches are notorious for having routines and schedules, and you schedule the practice times and meeting times and when the flights go. You have to schedule those family times too. I learned that from Coach Knoll. We had Saturday was family day for practice. So people got to bring the wives, bring the kids. We'd have a little barbecue or whatever, but we're going to schedule that in. Friday afternoons for us during the season was strict family time. So whatever we decided to do, whatever my wife and the kids wanted to do, that was our time. Nothing could encroach on that. And I remember at the Super Bowl in 2006, we're in Miami, and it's Friday afternoon. We kept our normal routine. Our kids wanted to go to the NFL experience. It's a big carnival out there. And so we took them. And I remember people looking at me and saying, that looks like the coach of the Colts, but what would he be doing out here? That's where my kids wanted to go. That's what we did. That was our date night, Friday nights all the time. And I wouldn't let anything encroach on that because it is so tough during the season.
Coach, when you look at all the football over all the years, like I know you go speak all the time and people are requesting that and you're on TV, but like what's the football story that everybody loves to hear when you go speak? What's the one you star, the Peyton Manning one, or whoever it's about that people love to hear?
Well, there's probably 2 that I tell all the time. First one is Super Bowl 41, and we're playing the Bears, and they've got a tremendous defense, kind of limited offense, and their big weapon is Devin Hester, and great kick returner. And so we go for 2 weeks preparing for the game. We're not going to let Devin Hester touch the ball. I've got Adam Vinatieri. We're squib kicking. We're kicking high. We're popping the ball up. He is not going to touch the ball. We're going to punt it away from him. Right before the Super Bowl, our chaplain gives a chapel service and talks about David and Goliath. Says all the Israelites panicked with Goliath. They're afraid of him, but David was just the opposite. Young boy, he saw Goliath. He ran right at him, took the stone, bam. And the difference was he wasn't afraid. He trusted the Lord. So I started thinking, are we afraid of Devin Hester? Is Devin Hester Goliath to us? So Saturday night, I said, hey, I hope we lose the toss. If we do, we're going to kick off. And we're going to kick it right down the middle of the Devin Hester and kickoff team. I want you to go down there and pound him. When you pound him, just like Goliath, when he drops, they're going to be done, and that's how we're going to win this game. So sure enough, we lose the toss. We kick off, kick it right to Devin Hester. 12 seconds later, he's in the other end zone. Yep. Everybody on the sideline is looking at me saying, what? Who made this decision? And I blame the chaplain. It was his fault. And then the second story that I love to tell is about Peyton Manning, and it is about what we were just talking about, Family Saturday. I had done that since I was a Steeler player. I instituted it in Tampa. Everybody loved it. I come to Indianapolis, and, hey, here's how we're going to do Saturday. It'll be a light practice, very short. We'll get some things done, but it's really going to be a time when the kids get to be out there, be with their dads, families are around. Well, Peyton Manning, in his 4 years before I got there, he was used to Saturdays being the review day, where he would make a note of everything that didn't go right on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. He'd want to run those plays again on Saturday, be very precise. So about every 6 weeks, we'd have a discussion. He'd say, I know what you want to do about this Family Saturday, but we're just not getting everything done. We're not as crisp. We're not as precise. Guys aren't concentrating. I say, trust me, it's going to be okay. Family Saturdays won a lot of Super Bowls in Pittsburgh. So that was kind of like a 5-year fight for us, and he grudgingly went along. How about this? Let's compromise. Bring all of the kids, but let them stay in the locker room. No, we're not going to do that. So we win the Super Bowl. Okay, I end up retiring. Peyton has twins. Now he goes out to Denver, and I'm broadcasting for Sunday Night Football, NBC. My boss says, could you go out to Denver and interview Peyton Manning? Be a great story, former coach and everything. So I fly out to Denver before the first game of the year, and Brandon Stokely, who also played for us and is a receiver for Denver now, he meets me, and he just, you will never believe what Peyton did. You'll never believe what he did. I said, Brandon, what did he do? He went to Coach Fox. He said, we got to get Family Saturdays in. These kids need to know where their dads work. So I say, I didn't teach them much about football, but we did kind of get that lesson across. And I think the Lord really got that lesson across when he had those twins and realized how important that time was with his kids.
Well, and you were strong enough to stand in it and stand firm in it and prove it, which is something that we're going to be faced all the time, right? Yeah. We're going to be faced with decisions, or we're going to be strong enough to stand in our faith. But it's amazing how, too, when we go through something and we experience it, it just changes it. I'm just so much more sympathetic. I'm so much more empathetic. I'm better at that when I've experienced it. When I've been burned and I've felt that pain of heartbreak and I've felt the pain of failure, like, now you can relate to that. That's to me the greatest thing about, I'm not you guys' age yet. Obviously I got a lot of years to get to you guys, but that's the greatest thing that happens as you get older is the wisdom. I mean, it's awesome.
And I love how Coach Dungy established those priorities, that family is going to be a priority. Peyton didn't understand it at the time because he wasn't a father yet. No. Then when he became a father, the priority of how important family is. Family's more important than football. That's for sure.
No doubt.
Tell us a little bit about All-Pro Dads. What are some of the programs? What are some of the things that you do with All-Pro Dads?
Yeah, it actually started in 1997. A couple of my coaches and I were talking about how we weren't spending enough time with our kids, how we weren't doing as good a job as our dads had done. What could we do? We went to the offices here in Tampa of an organization called Family First. They said they would have some tips for us. And they did. They gave us some ways to connect better and utilize that time better. And we said, oh, man, that's awesome. We're going to do this. Well, then they said, hey, you guys aren't alone. You're not the only profession that struggles with time management. You're not the only profession that has pressures on you. Maybe you guys could help us get the word out. So we said, hey, we'd be glad to do that. So we took a day at training camp. We ended up having a night practice, and we said, we'll invite dads to bring their kids out to watch the Buccaneers practice. And we'll have some T-shirt giveaways, and we'll have some places, podiums and things where people could come and get this information. And we thought we'd have 350, 400 people come out. We had 4,000 people come out that night. Guys bringing their kids, and it was an awesome night. And so that kind of started it. We said, hey, men have this connection with football. If we can get some football analogies and how we do things, but put in the fatherhood piece, it'll be great. So we started out with 5 or 6 all-pro players who happen to be Christians, Mike Singletary, Anthony Munoz. Hey, tell us your favorite parenting tip or the favorite thing you got from your dad. and we put it out on cards. Mike Singletary's play of the day is this. Anthony Munoz's all-pro dad tip is this. And that has morphed into a daily email now that about 1 million guys get every day, just the tip of the day to connect better with your children. We have probably about 1,000 schools around the country where guys meet once a month. They come in, have breakfast with their kids, and talk through issues, but just basically hang out for an hour with your kids before school starts. Those are the things that have been really, really great and gratifying. There's a website, allprodad.com. If you want to go sign up, you can find out, see if there's a chapter in your area. You can get the daily email, the play of the day, and you can get resources. 10 ways to be a better dad. I remember we came out with this 10 ways to be a better dad t-shirt, and I was putting them in the lockers of the kids, the guys that I knew that had kids. And it was just such a blessing to them and a benefit. And guys started asking me, hey, do you have any more of these? I'd like to pass them around to some of my friends. And then we realized that, hey, a lot of men need to hear this.
That's incredible. We need to talk about maybe a podcast. We can talk about those 10 ways to be a better dad.
And I get the email every day, and there's so many good writers on there that just good questions to bring up, like ways to relate it to your kids. Things you just don't listen, it's hard. We get busy. We don't think about all these different things. And I think even if it doesn't click with you on one day, 2 or 3 out of the days of the week, you're going to see something. You go, you know what? I think I could connect with my kid better. And here's questions to ask. Here's things to think about.
Yeah.
And I think those are all healthy conversations. And that's great. It's a great resource for any dad, period.
Yeah. And as David mentioned, the 10 ways to be a better dad shirt, the number one rule is love your wife, love your child's mom. So it even starts right there.
Yep.
Amen.
Anything else, Coach, that you would want to share with anybody out there? Not whatever's on your heart, whatever's the most, whatever's really important to you. Anything else that you'd want to share with everybody out there?
Well, I think for me, David, it really is that Bible verse, Matthew 16:26. I know you've had Coach Rick on. You have had people who understand that people look at us, if you've achieved something, you've been in the spotlight, and they say, wow, isn't that great? Isn't that fantastic? But we have to understand, and we've got to get the message out, that it doesn't matter what you do in this life. And you can have all the accolades, all the attention, all the notoriety that the world can give. If your relationship isn't right with the Lord and you haven't got your soul right, none of that is going to matter in the long run. And unfortunately, over 31 years in the National Football League, I saw that a lot. I saw guys who had everything you could ask for: Super Bowl rings, big contracts, great reputations. But if their soul wasn't right with the Lord inside, you could see that it wasn't going to end well. And that would be my message to anybody who's listening. Make sure, don't get caught up chasing worldly things. Make sure you've got that relationship with the Lord set. He'll take care of everything else.
That's a phenomenal word.
Phenomenal. And listen, that's your word, phenomenal. I think, and to do that, ask questions. I mean, to me, it was 20 years ago. The way I came to faith 20 years ago was literally doing outside reading for English. For English, I wanted to read the Bible because I had a teacher that was a believer that I couldn't get underneath his skin. So I really was curious about. He played praise and worship music, and I was kind of curious about it. I'm like, I want to know more about this. And I investigated it, and it rocked my world. And it absolutely, and it's still rocking my world to this day. Like, but you have to investigate it for yourself. It's not what social media has taught you. It's not what the internet's taught you. Like, go figure it out for yourself. Talk to pastors. Talk to people you trust that have something different about. Listen to guys like Tony Dungy, because you can answer some of these questions. Because I mean, it's real. It's been proven time and time again, and it's real, and you can feel it when you got it.
Well, Coach Dungy, I appreciate you being on the podcast, and you're such a mentor and an example for so many people, coaches, fathers, dads, kids, and we appreciate you. And I just want you to know that you've had a huge impact on so many people.
Huge.
And you're living a life of significance, not a life of success. But you found that because you're having an eternal impact.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for having me. And keep doing what you're doing. Keep sharing the word, because that's what we need. That's what our country needs.
Let's just talk a couple minutes just about some of the takeaways.
Put your headphones on. Let's go.
All right.
It's not hard. We're just going to talk.
Kind of slow today. Mentally.
I was looking at you because I was like, all right, I asked a question. It's your turn. And you were it's not firing.
I'm sorry. I'm out of it.
Yeah, I was wondering.
It's Monday.
I got a hurt back.
Big weekend.
Back's not good?
My back. Threw my back out.
Oh, there's nothing worse, bro.
Can't even hardly move,
There's nothing worse than a back because you can't do nothing.
I know.
It affects everything.
Really feeling old.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. I apologize. I wasn't on my
No, you're good.
It's all good.
It definitely wasn't. It wasn't the Pastor J greatness that I'm used to. That's for sure.
I'm sorry.
I could tell something was up, but I didn't know what it was. I was like, you got to step up, bro. You got to be a better teammate.
Man.
No, I'm talking to me. I was like, you got to be a better teammate. Let's go. You can ask better questions then.
I had so much information about that. I mean, he was so incredible. There's so many different angles you could have taken.
Well, this should be in our recap, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So
go. We're recording.
Oh, so you're good. You'll make this work. Okay.
Yeah. So, the thing I really love was I didn't know that about the Pittsburgh Steelers, because I was, growing up, I was a Saints fan, but the Saints were terrible. And so you either were Dallas Cowboys or Pittsburgh Steelers. I was Pittsburgh Steelers. And so
now that's back when they only had like 2 teams on TV, right?
Yeah, you had like 1 game a week, and it was like
black and white. Is it black and white?
I don't know about maybe.
It wasn't black and white.
I mean, I remember color TV, but anyway, my point was Terry Bradshaw, Rocky Bleier, Franco Harris, John Stallworth, Lynn Swann, Mel Blount. I mean, he mentioned Donnie Shell. I didn't know Donnie Shell was a Christian. I mean, Joe Green. I mean, I didn't know they had that. I'd never heard that part of the story about the Iron Curtain. He said they had 15, 16 guys that got together for Bible study. And basically, Donnie Shell discipled Coach Dungy. And Coach Dungy is who he is today in large part because he was a roommate with Donnie Shell. And you think about the impact that you can have on just one person's life. And look how many people Tony Dungy's impacted, because Donnie Shell woke up and said, "Hey, I read John chapter 1 today.
What did you read?" And and that accountability we need. But I just love all the touch points too that leads to all pro dads, that winning the Super Bowl on the sidelines last minute. What's in his brain? How am I going to take this and use it? Like that. That's what I said. And first thing I said in my head is, do I think that way? Am I going to be the person that when I get something and I get favor from God, am I going to acknowledge it and say, how am I going to pass this on? Like but adopting 11 kids. I mean, changing 11 kids' lives like he's done. I mean, all of it. All of it was unbelievable. But just like Coach Rick, everything you gave to him, he turned it where?
Back to Jesus.
Turned it right back to him. I mean, you could tell that was the foundation of everything he believed and everything, and the reason why he did everything he did and why he was so successful.
Yeah, so he had 3 biological kids, and he adopted 8. But a lot of times when you adopt a lot of kids, it's from one sibling group. But the idea that they did it 8 different times.
Yeah.
He strikes me as a dad that would be calm all the time.
Yeah, we didn't really get into his
He strikes me as a dad that didn't lose his cool.
We didn't get into his temperament and demeanor, because he kind of changed coaching from the screamer to the teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Kind of the more mentor, leader, teacher.
And thank God there's more of that now.
Yeah.
And he's a reason for that.
He was one of the first ones.
Yeah, 100%. And that you can win that way. He showed you can win being somebody that loves people. It doesn't have to be fear. It doesn't have to be I'm driving you. You have to fear me. It can be I'll work hard for you because I love you. That's okay. You can say that.
His autobiography is quiet strength.
Yep.
And so you could see that.
Picture that.
Strong leader. Like he didn't back down to
Peyton
Manning. So he was quiet, but he was strong. He knew what he wanted to do, and he was the leader. Yep. That would be hard if Peyton Manning's coming to you, this Hall of Fame, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, wanting to practice more on Saturday. And
I'm not surprised that Peyton had that mindset either, from what we know about Peyton too, just being the ultimate grinder, right? But again, full circle. He had kids, and he's like, yeah, you know what? This time with my family's not too bad.
Right. And I love that one of his big things he's first talked about was just be available for your kids. Be available. Like, how many times am I, all right, let me do this, and this. And my girls ask, hey, Dad, can you go do this? And I'm like, yeah, 1 second. I'm like, what? No, no, I should stop what I'm doing to be with them, because those days are not, I mean, they're going to be gone before I know it. You know, so that was a good gut check for me was, I mean, here's Tony, busy as all get out, but he's scheduling that family time with his wife, but he's also making himself available for his kids. So that was a good point there is it doesn't have to always be planned out and incredible, because he mentioned the stick ball.
Yeah.
You know, they made the baseball out of the tape and played
Y'all
played
done
stick
that, right?
ball. Oh yeah.
We did socks. We taped the socks.
I think I relate with his kid's story. Like, he was expecting him to say like some super cool moment they had like on TV or something with the NFL, but it's just like playing wiffle ball in the backyard or going and playing tennis. Like, that's what hits my mind. It's not like the big stuff that you would think. It's the little things.
Yeah, so I always try to implement that. I have a very flexible job, and other than Sundays and a few, I'm pretty flexible. So anytime the kids would come into my office and want to throw the baseball or play basketball or go play tennis, I'd pretty much drop what I was doing if I wasn't in a meeting or something.
Right, yeah.
I just go do it, because I could always come back and finish up.
Right.
Whatever I was doing.
Thank you for listening to this week's Family Goals podcast with David Pollack and Pastor Jay. There are so many strategies and tips and tricks and advice to be a great parent or spouse, but I think one of the greatest is simply being present. I related so much to Tony's son when he said his greatest memory with his dad was playing ball in the backyard. There are countless evenings when my dad and I would play catch or hit tennis, and there was never a time that he would turn me down, and I'm so incredibly thankful for that. Be present and available for your spouse and for your kids. And what do you benefit if you gain the whole world but lose your soul? Is anything more important than your soul? Nothing in this world is more important than your relationship with Jesus and your relationship with your family, your wife, your kids, your husband. So go check out allprodad.com for some phenomenal fatherhood advice. Thank you again for listening to the Family Goals podcast, and we'll catch you next week.